It will live. Let's see. Join. Right. So, welcome to the first edition of Facebook Live Policy and Pilsner here
from our garage.
It's fantastic. This is what you do when you have
So
a host.
We should know this was supposed to be at G's Tacos, which is
Well, yeah, the last one was supposed to be at G's Tacos.
a fantastic local business that we love. So I think in light of everything, we just want to give a shout out to those local businesses that are definitely trying to figure out and accommodate and adapt to a new normal for us right now. So if you're out there and you can support a local business like G's or any of those, please do so. Yeah. On with the show.
Yes. So, obviously, we typically host these at local different events or different venues around the city, such as G's. Also, Coca-Pelli's is another one who so graciously lets us host. So, shout out to them. I think, and I'm not positive, but I think both of them may be doing curbside type businesses or business delivery for food. So, I would check them out, check any other ones out too. I know the Westminster Chamber and the North Metro Chamber, I would give both of them a big shout out because they've really been trying to figure out different ways that we can help support local business in this time. Obviously, very limited in what you can do as bars and restaurants and any kind of congregating is shut down by the decree of the governor with the state of emergency, as well as the city's in a state of emergency to try to combat what's going on with COVID-19. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about that tonight. Not that it's not absolutely relevant, but maybe it would be nice for everybody to get a little break from it. However, a couple things I do want to say about it is the city council this last Monday night, we had a special meeting and we basically codified the powers that emergency powers to the city manager through the mayor's decree or special emergency ordinance. And it basically allows the city manager to do certain things that would normally have to go through council as far as spending, specifically around actions that need to be taken with COVID-19. So I think it's important that people, realize that happened. The other thing that the city council did on Monday night is we also made it so that we could have remote meetings. And so that's really important that the city continues to be able to do business. And this gives us that ability where before remote meetings isn't something that we've ever done before. So we are set to do a remote meeting this coming Monday. By charter, we do have to meet twice a month. And this allows us to do that. That way we are not being around each other and potentially getting each other sick. There are some of those on council that would, their families, that would be bad for them to bring home. Obviously it would be bad for any of us, but some more than others. So it's just really important that we did that and that we're able to continue to do business and make sure that the different services that the city provides continue to operate. Water, taking care of our infrastructure and our first responders, obviously, and big prayers out to them and shouts out to them as they, make sure that they're taking care of people, both our police and fire. So, keep the city leadership and the city first responders and all the people that continue to maintain your services, such as water, keep them in your prayers as we go through this together. And the last thing I will say on that is if you go to cityofwestminster.us, you can see what's latest with the city, and they're really keeping that up to date. There's a COVID-19 section if you straight from the homepage that has a lot of different resources, as well as like what the CDC is, the most up-to-date information is with the CDC, what they're telling people to do. I know right now it's saying, we're not supposed to gather more than 50. The president has said 10 people. I think just exercising caution, and, making sure you're using common sense and not putting yourself or others at unneeded risk. And, that's where we're at with those different situations. As things come along, obviously I'll continue to share. The city was supposed to host its second open house for water rates tonight at the MAC. That obviously was canceled because we can't host that because of the potential danger to the public with the COVID-19. So as that gets rescheduled and we make it through this, I'll be sure to share, what's next with that. For those, the discussion around water rates will obviously continue, but isn't really taking a priority right now with what's going on. So with that, I want to introduce my wife, Vanessa DeMott, who is the candidate for HD29. And I invited her to be kind of the special guest tonight because I think obviously HD29 is the representative for a good portion of Westminster. It's basically the whole Jefferson County side of Westminster is represented by House District 29. Our current representative is Tracy Kraft Tharp. She is going to be termed out this cycle, so this is her last term, and we thank her for her service to the city. She's been really good on business and doing stuff for mental health, which are things that are important to me and to Vanessa. So, thank you for her service. And with that, I want to be able to let Vanessa talk a little bit about what she thinks is important as far as what she would do at the State House if she's elected to be the representative for the Jefferson County half of Westminster and parts of Arvada, which also are encompassed inside of HD29.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, first of all, when we all look at our new situation, my realm of expertise and my realm of studying right now is mental health, and I want to go into social work and adolescent behavioral health. This is a very interesting time for our family, and I'm sure for a lot of families. We're seeing firsthand what our teachers need to be able to do on a daily basis, to be able to move and transition our kids from one subject to the next and keep them engaged. We're seeing as parents now, we're balancing our work from home. I myself am a full-time student. I'm in my last semester at Front Range. So there's a multitude of feelings and emotions I think we all have right now. I definitely feel for the class of 2020 across the board. I think that they've had tremendous challenges for a long time. So this is a really big one. So a lot of thoughts and prayers for them, as well as my class at Front Range Community College. We don't know what that end game looks for us right now. We know that our semester's online and we're adapting to that. And we kind of are thankful for those IT guys out there who've really helped transition a lot of us to it. And as you can see, this is our home office right now. So I think to go from there, there's a lot to be said for keeping up with that routine. Our mental health here at home is waking up and making our beds and staying in that routine and trying to help the kids stay, kind of in that same go and have that time to rest and get out, especially in these upcoming days when that weather changes. Take care of yourself, everyone, because this could be a long haul, and we keep hearing, we're all in this together. So with that said, that's a mouthful, so take a little drink here. My focus at the State House, I think it's actually evolving as we go through this. So I've said from the beginning, this was a campaign for the people. I want to focus on growth and transportation. Right now, I think we're seeing more than ever what it's like to be able to have that open space. We don't want to be living on top of each other. We don't want that density. We want representatives. We want council people that'll stick up for those property rights, that'll be out there and support residents to say that, some growth is okay and we appreciate it, and it's good for business. But to listen to some of those growth plans and how those change within municipalities and where I can be a partner as a representative in that. Dave tells me a lot how they watch different House bills and things that come from legislative session and what they look at a municipal level. So it's interesting to see where that overlaps and where my interests are. Some of that is transportation. We're now seeing moving people is increasingly a task in the Denver metro area. Having enough drivers to run buses. Now that we see how important it is to have private transportation, having roads to be able to bring food, to be able to bring those necessities will always be a need. So you need a representative that's going to be out there looking for those needs. If you have a business, you absolutely want people to get to it. If you live in a remote area, you deserve to have a road that is accessible at some point to have those goods brought, in your path. From there,
I think that's an interesting topic. I know that talking. I'm not sure I was on council yet or just getting ready to be on council or running. I remember having breakfast with the city manager. He was city manager then as well. And we were talking about autonomous vehicles. And I know that some people feel that somehow is going to lessen transportation. And you and I have talked a lot about how I think it's actually the opposite that will happen, because you'll have the ability to have people that maybe potentially, depending on what happens with the law and the technology, you could have people who otherwise couldn't drive today, or even kids, where you could say, I'm going to send my car with this person who otherwise wouldn't have a vehicle.
We see all the time, like, you have a mom who, in our case, we have 3 kids that don't drive right now. So instead of me driving 3 separate directions, if there was a capability that I could have 3 separate cars to go 3 separate directions, that's only more vehicles. Why we hope that technology comes, and it's good for the environment, and it's green, and it helps all of us. The reality is the impact of vehicles is still there. So I think that's really important to know. As population grows, as whatever that looks like, it's always something to look at. And transportation is not just cars. We always see the need for bikes. This is Colorado. People love their bikes. Cities want to make those accommodations. Where does it make sense? And where can we have bikes that it's I'm
getting
safe.
Text messages from people that are watching, so I'm glad we're
Are we
not
supposed to be answering questions?
No, I'm watching. Nobody's asking me so far, but
Oh, well, maybe we should invite them to ask questions.
yeah, we are watching the
Is
chat.
it because we're
so,
not keeping our social distance? Because
well,
I think it's okay.
I feel if one of us gets it, we're already in trouble. But
Okay.
One of the other things, like the overlap you talk about, as far as like what the city does and what the state does, obviously we each have our different role in things, and we are seeing a lot of overlap. I know in our last strategic planning for the city, one of the things that we all agreed on that I brought up because it's very important to our family, since we've had some exposure with mental health issues with our daughter, was that mental health should be something the city looks at, and not necessarily being the provider, as that's like a county thing as far as connecting those resources, but to say that it doesn't touch us is not reality, because from our first responders to our people who take water bills, they all have to deal with
There's
it.
a lot to be said within even that, where that policy can help, and where it's important that I imagine at a state level, and I think this is a place that, again, our current representatives done a tremendous job is getting those resources where it means, and now it's up to you as community leaders to decide where those resources matter, because putting a mental health worker in a patrol car doesn't help. Our police officers are brilliant, amazing people that go out on the streets and do these jobs. They know when somebody's in a mental health crisis or substance health. They at least know that much. So they need the resource to take them to. They need this person to keep getting that help on that back end. They need that proactive care. They don't need somebody telling them that this person's in a crisis. That they know. So there is a lot of that common sense legislation out there. So it's definitely moving that needle in the right direction. But I want to continue that work. I think that's where it all comes together. Well, I think
one of the things the state has done, and just recently the city got approved for a grant, was basically to do some training. And so, like, the reason, like specifically like Westminster, and I'm sure other municipalities do it, but I know specifically what we do. And even so our city has an alumni group that's went through our Citizen Police Academy. And we both got to sit through like a light version of the training that the officers do to say, is this a mental health crisis or is this a drug problem? What are you dealing with? And they train them to see the signs of what the differences are. Right. And so some of those state dollars absolutely go to be able to train as we get new officers who maybe either even laterals, maybe we do things a little different, so that they basically have the tools. But you're absolutely right. One of the things from there is then where do they take them? And I think we all agree, and one of the concerns in a bill that I think Representative Kraft-Tharp worked on was to be able to, in the rural areas, to be able to transport them to the right place, because jail's not the right place for people that are in a mental health crisis.
Well, and we know even transportation is huge. Transportation looks a lot of different ways, and in a rural area, transportation is a lot of miles. In a mental health situation in a middle school, what does that look like? So that response is huge, and being able to put resources to train is absolutely, I guess, a big overlap again, where I keep that focus of mental health and school safety. And maybe to switch gears a little bit, when we look at those dynamics of mental health in schools, I would love to give a shout out to Jeffco Schools, because what we're seeing right now first is a lot of educators and a whole school system that, and Dr. Jason Glass had a fantastic post, if you follow him on Facebook, just how all of a sudden we had a school system that had to transition to online in just a matter of days. They might have been somewhat aware, and we have a great generation that's adaptable and they love learning this way, but that took a lot to do it. But there's a back piece that I really think people should know is there's a lot of kids, and our daughter included, that receive a lot of services from school. And when this news kind of hit us, there is a lot of things that go on in your mind as a parent. And so whether your child is needing food services, really, I never like to look at it as daycare, because that's not at all what our educators provide to our children. But 6 hours a day means some parents can earn that income to keep their families going. So that hits us all. Another piece for us was there's mental health services. Our daughter's on an IEP, and it's been such a fantastic accommodation to help her through that. But missing some of those mental health services and those conversations was a little worrisome. That kudos goes to Jeffco Public Schools, because they've been able to accommodate with telehealth and some of those kids, and the same social worker from her school is able to help her. I hope that's the case in other school districts. I hope that's the case in other schools, but wow, I mean, that to us is big.
Well,
and
since you're on the topic, I know one of the things, like my company even, and a lot of companies have moved to this if you're in a place where you're like having a lot of panic and stuff over what's going on, because you can, or your family members are having a hard time dealing with this. I know we talked about this in our leadership call today, because I am an executive where I work, and they talked about the resources that our different insurance providers provide. So there's phone numbers that we have, and I would, if you don't know those, I'd encourage you to talk to your HR departments, and if you have a company who has one, to ask about those resources, because that's a really good bridge gap for different families that maybe that's something that you need right now in this time, so that people can work through this stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's hitting everybody a little different, but since you're on the topic, I know I would really recommend that you think about those things, because it's important, and to be able to have that outlet, even if it's like, hey, I'm having a little bit of anxiety. There are a lot of resources and
for sure,
different stuff that people can use, and talking to people sometimes really does help. And I know, like for our daughter, it's really nice that Jefferson County, through the school that she's at, has provided that. And so in this time, that mental health care professional from the school system has actually been reaching out with her because of the IEP that our daughter is on. So
yeah. I think to round out kind of my focus at the state capitol, growth in transportation, as we had talked about, mental health and school safety. Really, there's such that bridge there between mental health and school safety. So when we look at school safety, I think we look at a huge spectrum, and it's really an interesting place to be talking about it right now, when our kids are at home and now we have such close contact with them and we can talk about it.
I want to real quickly, just City Councilman Acunto, who is also one of our Westminster police officers, he was just pointing out that that this is really a big wake up call for a lot of cities and schools and other businesses to be prepared for handling remote work and e-learning. And you're absolutely right, Dave. I mean, that's what I spent Friday afternoon. We went from a situation that was like, hey, we think we're going to try this next week, to Friday morning to like, hey, get these people ready who aren't ready for it, which luckily my company, about I'd say 98% of everybody already was, to 10 minutes later, everybody get the hell out of here and go home. We don't want anybody here for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So, that's what my last 4 days has been, trying to get everybody up and working from home.
So, when we look at that in the realm of schools, and when we look at school, and my focus of looking at those options in schools and how well it's worked for our daughter. And I hope that if it ever comes to it, that if our other children needed it, that it's something we could do. But in the efforts of school safety and mental health, that whole spectrum is, you have children that are just hurting and need something that the regular school system just isn't working for them. That classroom, that learning style, we can see right now, so many kids may benefit so greatly from this online. What if this is a great way that we can we can see where maybe there's some places we can cut costs. We're always looking at ways. I love doing research. I'm kind of a nerd like that. Gosh, this is giving me so much time to sit and do this research. But Colorado funding per pupil is, it varies per district. So with that per pupil funding, where are, that transportation, where are ways that we can help students save that money on the taxpayer, but still give students that best experience and education? And where can we really bring them at 18 to bring them into a job market? This job market could be changing as we know it. We could see trades and places that we really need actual, physical
we're
work
actually
and
seeing it
labor.
right now. So it's really interesting to watch the news, and it is scary what's going on with the economy. However, I think that the American spirit is something that's resilient, and it really, we adapt.
I'll drink to that.
We adapt and we pivot. I like the word pivot. And I
don't think he's referring to Friends, because I don't really think Dave is a big Friends guy, but I know I am. And so when I hear pivot, it speaks to me.
Who our age is in a Friends person. but really, think about how we're already seeing things adapt. So right now, our economy has shifted to everybody's trying to buy goods. And so today I saw Amazon is trying to hire, I don't remember what the number was. It was a big number. The grocery stores are trying to hire big numbers. And some of the businesses are closed for safety. Some of them are closed because they're not keeping up with the demand of people needing the supplies, because they're afraid they're going to be stuck at home for a long time, which looks like they could be stuck at home for a bit of time. But, I was talking to one of the founding members of the Westminster Chamber today, Brian Head, and was just talking about, I think that we're going to see a shift in how we do business. I think a lot of businesses are going to see, how much money can our employees save by not driving to the office every day? We're going to adapt over the next month or two to how we need to continue to try to do our business. Even my business, we're trying to think of ways how can we support the community through this time, and try to stay sustainable, because at the end of the day, really, people need to figure out how to do business. We need to figure out how to feed our families, even through tragedy. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with our economy over the next 2 years. I think it's going to be painful for a little while, but I believe that we have the spirit to adapt and be, have the ingenuity to really power through things. We've seen it throughout the history of this country. And I think it'll be interesting, what the different roles play. Right now, the government's doing a lot of different stuff, trying to figure out what's going to fix it, from the federal level to the state level to the city.
And I think right here, we had this great conversation. Gosh, there's so much time for conversation right now in our house. Not that it hasn't happened for years anyways between Dave and I, but to point out some free market things here, because to let you in on a little secret, we're big free market and capitalist kind of people. So a company in, I think it was Tennessee, and gosh, please don't quote me if I get this wrong, but I want to give you the overall gist of it. A company in Tennessee that makes alcohol, that makes liquor, contacted their representatives, their federal representatives, Congress or senators, and said, hey, we have this product. We have a way to make hand sanitizer with our product. If you would lift up some of those regulations, let us do this. We can make the sanitizer. We can get it out to hospitals. We can get out to local governments, no charge. Let us do it. It's our way to give back. That's a way that boom, we didn't need that government solution. We just needed government to be that conduit that it usually is. And then another story was Honeywell, I believe, who normally makes filters and such, said, we can make masks. We can make those masks that hospitals need. Again, lift up the regulations that's preventing us from doing it, whether it's a facility, whether it's, it's a product that we're not allowed to make right now for trademark reasons, but we can do it. So this is such a great example of American companies addressing the problems for American people and hopefully the world, because we are
something a little more
together.
Local here, and I'll give a pitch. My family owns a couple of pizzerias, Randy's Pizza, Garamoni's in Lakewood, and then Pietro's Pizza, where I worked for 10 years. I saw today my cousin is partnering with, I think it's 5280 Produce, and they're doing curbside as well as DoorDash, and they're actually having their employees deliver as well. And the other thing that Pietro's is doing is they've partnered with 50, and you can actually go pick up fresh produce, or they'll deliver it to you if you order a pizza from Pietro's, Obviously, you got to buy it,
So,
but that's
can I
another
throw
way to
out
get.
an idea, just because maybe we have enough people watching this would work, that if some of these local companies like this are in need of workers right now, I know I'm a work study at Front Range Community College, and it's been definitely a blessing to have that extra money, but beyond that, it was such a great experience to have. With our campuses closed, we all lost that work study. If there's some work study students out there who are in need of some of that, I mean, maybe those are some great partnerships that they could reach out to colleges who can contact those students directly through email. I mean, maybe those are some great ways
I have jokingly keep
gaps.
telling my boss during the day I might get a night job doing Uber Eats, because let's be honest, people are gonna. I mean, it's gonna be a thing that people are using.
We have product that still needs to be used. We have produce. We have things that we don't want to go to waste. So let's be mindful, I guess, of all of that and be resourceful.
Councilman Acunto or Officer Acunto.
I feel like he's our biggest fan right now. What is he drinking?
That's a good question, Dave. Are you having a drink? Because this is what this is. But he answered, it's 10,000 Amazon workers. Then he was saying that also Ford was looking for manufacturing ventilators as well. So a lot of interesting shift in what people are doing. Like even what the president came out today and kind of, I don't know the total ins and outs of it, because honestly, it was a super busy work day. I think I've been busier since I've been in my home office than I am at the office, because everybody, like, they don't see you talking to somebody, so everybody wants to talk to you because they can't see that you're already talking to 3 people. But
have you been here for the last 17 years? We have 4 kids.
Yeah, they come in and go every once in a while through the door. I'm surprised they haven't bugged us, because during the work day, they come in and out and they're like, "Are you on the phone? Are you on the phone?" I'm like, "Yep, I'm on the phone. I'm working." But so it's gonna be really interesting to see how things come through. I really think that even at the council on Monday night, and we have our differences as council people, and I think that we really said, this is not the time for those differences. This is the time that we press ahead and show the spirit that the city of Westminster has, state of Colorado, and really the nation, how we get through adversity. And, I think that this will bring us through on the other side stronger in a lot of different ways. I mean, it may take a little bit of time to get through this, but I'm confident that we will. So I think this has been really good. We have about 9 people watching. This has fluctuated through time. Hopefully more people watch it and get to enjoy it. And hopefully you all adhered to the spirit of what Policy and Pilsner is and had a drink with us, because that's the whole point. The beauty of this one is nobody has to, have a limit. Nobody's watching you at home. So have as many as you want. But with that, is there any other things that you'd like to share as far as like what your hopes are if you come November, the people elect you to be the representative, or not? Like, what do you hope you get out of this? I know I talked about, I've lost more elections than I've won. And, my goal always was to change the conversation.
Right.
And I know you and I have talked about that as far as like, I don't think that losing is always losing, depending on what you did with the conversation through a campaign. So what do you come November? What do you want to say you accomplished?
It's because of that spirit that and I've told Dave, and I'll keep this a secret between us, but that you've got a little choked up before when I've mentioned it, but it's because of that spirit you have that made me say, you know what, if I go for this and I lose, have I really lost? Because I know no matter what, I encourage more conversation, and I can tell you, I feel like there's already a victory in it. I participated in the Colorado Department of Health Behavioral Health Task Force to talk about what can we do in our mental health system here in Colorado. And so participating in that even helps me move that conversation. And if that's what people around are seeing, then hey, that's a victory, because that's what matters. And I know in my education, that's what I'm really going for. I would never want to say that this is a side gig to represent the people, because again, I guess not to make this a love fest, but Representative Kraft-Tharp, you've done an amazing job, and I'm inspired with that as well to carry on that work and say that's what I want to do. So even once I get my degree and I move on and it's just working for the people and behavioral health, and that's a win too. So I'll keep advocating regardless.
I think it's interesting because obviously we're both Republicans, and Representative Crapthorpe isn't. But I do. We both believe in giving credit where credit's due. We don't see eye to eye on everything, but you can give credit where you've done a good job. At the end of the day, politics should be a war of ideas. Who's got the better idea? And honestly, if we have the worst candidate or worst idea, shame on us. We both believe in liberty first and self-resilience and and putting it on the individual versus
and doesn't liberty take on a whole new meaning right now for
it does. This
all of us?
is a really difficult time for somebody to decide what's the right balance. Where do we let government go too far versus personal responsibility? It's an interesting time to live through, but it's interesting too. I think we're all put in a place for a reason. Obviously, we're people of faith, and we believe a lot has to do. Our beliefs have a lot to do with that. I was talking to a good friend that works in our PD the other day. That's that I've known through a lot of different tragedies, from the Ridgeway situation that really got us involved. And if for those of you who don't know, I was a PTO president when that happened, and I was half joking, half not. Like, man, I seem to pick to be in leadership. Every leadership role I've had had a different, difficult time to work through.
To lead in crisis, though,
it's different. And I thank all my colleagues in our city leaders because this is a hard time to be in leadership. We don't always all agree, but I think we all, at the end of the day, I hope we all have the same idea, which is taking care of the people. And so, I think that's what it's all about. And, that's why my whole thing was, we the people is what I evolved into my campaign slogan. And it just makes sense. It's what this country is. And Vanessa's is for the people, which is, it's really all the same thing. So, thank you to everybody who's been working hard through this, and individuals, keep your heads up. We'll get through it together. We'll probably actually have more of these than we normally would have town halls because we're going to have a little more free time. So if you want to join us, great. I appreciate everybody who did join us. I saw also that former Mayor McNally, who's a good friend of mine and a big fan, she said she had her fully loaded Coke. For those of you who don't know, Nancy doesn't really drink. I will say my Coke is sugar-free and fully loaded with rum, Mayor McNally, but I appreciate everybody who joined tonight. And just so you know, Mr. Acunto said that he's off duty, so it's Councilman Acunto.
So it's Councilman Acunto right now.
Good. We'll have to make sure that we keep up with that. So thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Hopefully you learned something.
And I'd love to see some of these come from the people. So if you're, Councilman Acunto, maybe can we call him out? Is he willing to do his own town hall?
I think that Councilman Acunto has been
policy?
thinking about how he does some of these himself. He actually just asked next time he could be a special guest. And actually, let's try to figure that out. Actually, I have some free time, so I know that there's ways that we could do that. Councilman Acunto, so maybe we could have a regional collaboration, remote policy in Pilsner. So that would be actually really good. So thank you again for joining us, and probably 2 weeks, and we'll see, and we'll post another one. So thank you very much.
Good night, everyone.